Okay, so I wanted to create a video on Google Gemini. Google Gemini is basically the large language model equivalent of ChatGPT from Google, right? This was previously known as Bard. They've done a 360, now they're rebranding everything as Gemini, right? So if you can shape your attention to this similar experience to ChatGPT, right? We have Gemini and Gemini Advanced. Right now, Google's giving out 2 free months to try out their tool, right? And then after those 2 months, I believe it's $19.99 or $20 per month, right? Now, I've gotten my first-hand use of it, trying to understand, what is the accuracy, what are the type of ways I would use this as well, right? But I also want to make you aware too that there's options out there, right? We can kind of see that most of these large language models that are being leveraged are still going to interact with some type of prompting from that chat interface, similar to ChatGPT. So you should be at least fairly comfortable with this. Now, it gives you a couple examples. What makes this model fairly intuitive is the way it explains things back to you. So it's not just giving you a response that is accurate per se, but it's actually breaking down why it gave you that or what are the concerns you should be aware of. So at least in my limited interaction with it, it's been fairly accurate. So let's play around. Let's prompt some stuff and let's see kind of what those outputs look like. So you can take your look at. You can also see here we do have you can upload an image, use your microphone, etc. Similar nuances with the UI UX design, right? So I'm going to start up a new chat. Let me do a new chat. Okay, and let's say generate me a photo of World War II imagery, such as a fighter plane flying in the sky with detail of the wing of the plane with a number 99. Now again, this is just off the top of my head, so there was no preparation. I'm just going off the dome, okay? So bear with me. So let's see what it thinks about. What makes this fairly interactive too is you'll see the specific little logo, essentially stars, if you're familiar with emojis. All right, so we can see I get a couple options. Similar to Mid-Journey, right? I get a couple options and I can do generate more, right? But these do look pretty nice. Well, I mean, some details might be lacking, but nonetheless, for a first go of something generated like that, that's fairly pretty nice. What I was thinking about in my head. Now let's change gears on it. What is the history of Rome? Break down categorically key figures during this time frame, and include a short bio of those key figures as well. So let's see how it reasons this. And the reason I'm getting a little bit more to the point is because, at least in my experience with these large language models, you have to be fairly precise in what you're requesting, but also the expectations inside the prompt. That's there. You'll hear this term prompt engineering right broadly. Everyone has their own kind of technique per se, but that's what I typically use. So we can see here, this will spit out a similar breakdown. What is the breakdown of the Roman history, legendary founding and kingdom period? Okay, Romulus, well known, legendary first king of Rome, right? And then second king of Rome. So this gives me at least a key period time frame that I requested, and a just short synopsis based on Julius Caesar, which we all probably have heard of, Augustus as well. So some pretty nice key areas. Now let's try to have it reason some lines of code, right? So write me a script that uses Azure CLI to list the quotas of my region with the output as a table. And the reason I bring up this similar functionality is because when we think about Azure CLI, strictly fairly nuanced, straightforward, but I want to see how it interprets all platforms, right? So we can see here, this will give me some prerequisites. This will, say I need a CLI and also need a quota extension installed, right? And this will tell me account show query ID and then essentially bringing that in there. And what I like too is this has added a level of caution, right? Use the code, but with caution, right? I'm starting to see this at least predominantly in other large language models as well, kind of a disclaimer per se, but I think it's important because it's a safeguard, right? So then this will even break down that explanation for you, right? The script begins by obtaining your Azure AD subscription ID, right? This is to avoid ambiguity. If you manage multiple, determine your region, right? Every region has a different nuance. And the great thing too is down here, I can share And if you can see, I can export it to docs, I can export it to Replit, which is fairly unique, right? And then I can double check the response as well. So let's try to double check that response. And this will tell me check completed, no results found, understand the results. Google search is likely similar to the statement. A link is provided, but it's not necessarily what Gemini uses. So if there was anything, right, this is essentially, think of this as a sanity check, right? Now I can also say, okay, perhaps I want that same response, but maybe I'm not the most, let's say, code-centric per se. Let's do similar, or simpler, okay? And let's see how that drastically changes. I can't imagine too much, maybe a slimmed down version, right, with some comments. Okay, ensure you're logged in. And then specifically, okay, so straight to the point. So we can kind of see the difference there. Now, we can also have this, think about what are some challenges per se that are similar in ChatGPT, but other areas. Let's say, what happened to Google Bard? And let's see if it reasons on that. This likely is going to pull from their statement, right? I believe the app's privacy, right? So here's what happened to Google Bard. Here are things that stand out now, right? Initial launch factual error was rushed to market after the explosive popularity of ChatGPT. Unfortunately, Bard made a significant factual error during the Google demo, highlighting a key challenge for conversational AI tools. Name change rebranded in early 2024, right? So this also coincides with when the announcement came out about Gemini, and there was a large demo that showed it was multimodal. It was doing quite a lot, but then it was found out that in the back end that some of the scenes depicted were not necessarily seamless as it appeared per se. Additionally, I do think it's a caveat to give them benefit of the doubt, right? These systems are largely complex to maintain at scale, right? Only a few large organizations, including OpenAI, right, are going to need large amounts of compute, and it's a battle of the GPUs, right? Now, this will also tell you some more insightful things, right? Where things might be heading. Still believes in the potential of conversational AI tools. Here's what we might see going forward, right? Responsible AI development, hybrid approaches, right? And let's say I'm going to double check that response, see what that looks like as well. But I'd say that pulled out a very unbiased type of approach, and then also it looks like some privacy concerns about Google Bard, compliance with the European regulations around personal data protection. So similar things that we see, right, broadly. And then it looks like everything was good to go on that. Now, one thing I have seen other YouTubers as well with testing this, there's some things it does good, some things I wouldn't say it's the best at yet. That doesn't mean it's not going to improve, right? I think of the 2-month trial is Google trying to buy back some of the lost credibility for the blunder per se with Google Bard, but also I think to understand, what are people using it for? What are the better ways to move those forward? And then ungoogly, rushed and botched. So this even gives you some resources as well. And you'll start seeing, at least I will show another model too, just to finish off the last half of this video. I wanted to keep it fairly concise, but what Google Bard is, right? What does this tool present? And then also any confusion or any type of dispel of, okay, if I do want to use this, what are kind of the best ways to use this? Now, you want to think about largely, right? If something is free per se, not in the trial perspective because there's a payment tied to it, but such as like GPT 3.5 and the use of that, right? Those protections, or at least if those consent allow you to not train the model per se, those are going to really lie on that pay-as-you-go model, okay? And the reason I bring that up is because I see a lot of people overlook this, right? And then you can see it here, right? Your privacy in Gemini AI, and this will have a whole breakdown of what is included, what is not included, what does it use, what doesn't it use, right? Things you need to be aware of from the privacy perspective. Now, I'm going to show a quick other tool I came across as well, because I don't think I could make a separate video on it, but I just want to show you what that looks like already. Specifically, let me double down on that. I'm going to show you a tool called Perplexity AI. And the reason I'm showing this tool is because I want you to be aware of what I use, right, day to day, but also to get familiar with these types of tools. They're here to stay, right? This is the new paradigm. So what Perplexity's goal is essentially to cloud what is search engines, right, when I go to Google, Bing, or etc. So I'm going to show you an example. What is the history of Rome? And the stories related to Socrates, let's just say that. If I use this term copilot here, I had to log in. I'm not going to log in on this one. But this allows you to also have follow-up questions, right? And if I do focus, you can see here I can look for specific data sets that it's going to parse, right? Generate text or chat, right? Or I can search from Reddit, I can do academic, I can do YouTube, a number of areas. Or I can attach images, etc. So let's say I'm just going to do a quick search. Now you'll see here, the user interface of this is just phenomenal, right? You can get a nice images up here based on your specific query. I have resources listed, and then how fast the answer came back. All right, so now let's take the same approach, and let me go to like a Bing, right? Or wherever, Google search, whatever. And let's just search. So we can see that it's using, right, some form of intelligence looking for specifically the keyword Socrates, right? But we can see I have to go through quite a lot, right? Maybe I'll go through this Wikipedia, some more images, and it's not to diminish that, but we can see broadly, right, that we have a number of noise areas that we can go through, right? For this, I can get straight to the response. I can find out information, and then I can also look at, okay, what is the connection? Like a follow-up question. What is the connection between Socrates and Rome? So you can see it's going to go through some academic journals. The connection between is primarily through influence of Socratic philosophy on Roman intellectual and cultural life, right? Now, this is not just limited on history, but just to show you an example of how quick this resource is able to pick up the story and then also make you aware of any type of resources you want to look at. Is the latest news headlines. I'm going to say, what is the latest news headlines today? Summarize those. So if I can say, what is the latest news headlines? I can get a breakdown. It looks like it crawled CNN and a couple others. So it looks like Utah. So it went to one source, right? But let's say I want to go to, what are the top news stories of the day, right? And then it'll go to Reuters, I'm probably saying that wrong, but you can see that this does quite a crazy efficient job of searching through a bunch of noise. What are the best ways to analyze code that is stored privately using SAST, DAST, etc.? Let's throw a hardball out there. So we can see this talks about source SCA tools broadly, source code analysis. It's going to talk about OWASP, right? Really credible. And then it's going to break down, obviously, what those tools are, and then what's kind of the differences. But also, it'll give you anecdotal information about that, right? And then you can see here how it made that type of search, right? I can go to whatever resource. But the key thing is I can get to my specific response much faster, right? And then let's say I want to generate an image. I want to search for a video. I can do search for a video, and then it's going to browse this specific activity, and it's going to find me anything related to that. So I do think this differentiator of this is going to democratize search broadly, but also make search more efficient with using artificial intelligence. Now, this is, again, likely going to face some hurdles, right? I'd imagine, as we're seeing broadly, a lot of copywriters, copyright protections, a lot of things need to be re-examined, right? But for the meantime, it'd be safe to assume that this type of tool is definitely going to help you out day to day. That is all I had for today, but I just wanted to show you some AI stuff. Hopefully you found this helpful. Feel free to like and subscribe.